and welcome to this module 3 of OER on strategy formulation. So far in our earlier modules we have covered introduction to strategy and strategic intent. Now as we discussed in our module 1 about the strategic management process, the next step is of environment analysis. Now the environment of an organization consists of two components, external and internal. First, let's try and see the external environment of a firm or where a firm operates. So the three major components of firm's external environment constitute of the immediate operating environment, the industry environment, and the remote environment of a firm. The remote environment is also called as the macro environment of the firm, which includes the economic environment, social, political, technological, and the geographical or ecological environment. And when we talk about the remote environment or the macro environment, the level of these factors or these environment forces can be any. It can be within a city, within a state, within a country, or they can also be at a global level. It depends on at what level the organization operates. So since we're talking about the level of operation of an organization, the other external environment constitute of operating environment, which is also called as the micro environment of the firm, which includes the competitors or the existing rivalry of the firm. It includes the creditors, the debtors, the customers, which includes potential as well as existing customers, the labor markets, not the employees but the labor market in general, and the suppliers to the company or the suppliers who are available in the industry itself. The third component of the firm's external environment is constituted by the industry environment. Now the industry environment forces or the components have been very well defined by Michael Porter in his books and articles on strategy. Porter argues that there are 5 major forces that constitute the industry environment of a firm. It includes the existing rivalry organizations. It includes the potential entrants or the organizations which might enter the industry and become the competitors. It also includes the organizations or the products that are substitute or that extend as substitute of the offering or products or the services that are being offered by the company. And the other two forces includes the suppliers and the buyers. Now in these 5 components, basically we are looking at, since we are defining them as forces, we are looking at the forces come with a threat. So there is a threat from new entrants or potential entrants, there is a threat of substitute products, then there is a threat from the bargaining power or the amount of bargaining power of buyers, and an immediate or direct threat from the rivalry organization. Now this is an important component of external environment because this can be evaluated, though it is uncontrollable, but at least an organization can take audit and note of these threats. So Michael Porter elaborates these 5 forces and gives a mechanism to determine the level of threat, or on the other side the level of attractiveness on towards an industry for a firm based on the industry environment. So the first among them is rivalry among competitors. So it may be simply argued that the relationship between rivalry and attractiveness is that higher the rivalry, lower will be the attractiveness of that particular industry for the firm. And the factors that constitute the rivalry includes the number of competitors in the business, what is the percentage of industry growth, the amount of fixed costs, differentiation accepted in the industry, the switching cost, and the strategic stakes of the players who are rivals in the business. The next aspect is of barriers to entry, a basic relationship between barriers to entry and attractiveness is that higher the barriers to entry, or higher the difficult it is for the new entrants to enter the market, so the barriers of entry are higher is the attractiveness. So they have a correlationship, positive correlationship. And the factors that determines the barriers to entry or the levels or the attractiveness of this industry includes economies of scale, product differentiation, brand identity of the firm, then how are the channels of distribution, whether they are easily accessible or not, capital requirement, whether it is high, low, access to technology and raw material, and how far the government is protecting this particular industry will determine that what are the levels of barriers. So higher the barriers, lesser the threat from potential entrants. The next aspect is of bargaining power of buyers. Again, the relationship between buyer power and attractiveness is inverse. So higher the buyer power, lesser the attractiveness towards the industry. So it is determined by number of buyers, availability of substitute to the buyers in comparison to the product offered by the firm who is assessing this industry environment. Then switching cost of this substitute or of the competitors. Then how far the customer or the buyer basically contribute to the quality or cost. So higher it is, higher the contribution, higher is the amount of power or bargaining power with the buyers, and lesser the attractiveness, and likewise with the other factors. And then supplier power or the bargaining power of suppliers. Again, the similar relationship, inverse. So it is determined by number of suppliers, substitute availability in terms of whether the firm can have a substitute supply or suppliers of raw material. Then contribution to quality and cost by the supplier side, and industry's importance to supplier, that whether the supplier can provide the material or whatever inputs the supplier is giving to the firm. So what is the scope available to the supplier? So that will determine the bargaining power of the suppliers. Now these after that, there is also a aspect of threat from substitute. So whether the again the relationship is that higher the threat from substitute, lesser is the attractiveness in the industry. So whether there are close substitutes available, where the switching cost of between, or basically what is the cost available of the product offering and the substitute, and what is the price value of the substitute or value derived from the substitute. So these 5 aspects are taken into consideration to determine the overall attractiveness of an industry. So that completes the external environment, including industry environment, remote environment, and the micro or operating environment. The another aspect of the environment appraisal is the internal environment, which may be determined by the process of organizational appraisal. So in any organization, of course, there are resources that may be human resources or other material resources. Now all these resources theoretically behave. So whether these resources are behaving in a desirable manner or an undesirable manner will determine that what is the behavior, whether it is positive or negative. So these resources and their behavior will determine. So if everything is positive, it will lead to build-up of strength of the organization, and inversely it will lead to the weaknesses within the organization. Whatever is whichever resource is behaving in an undesirable manner is basically a weakness for the organization, and all the resources which are behaving in a desirable manner provide strengths to the organization. Now these strengths and weaknesses will further lead to synergy or disynergy effects within the organization, leading to competencies or otherwise incompetencies in the firm. eventually leading to organizational capability or organizational incapability. And finally, whether these resources, if everything is positive, strengths, energy, competencies, and capability, will lead to the strategic advantage for a firm. And inversely, all these factors, if they are behaving in an undesirable manner, will lead to strategic disadvantage to the firm. So now each firm need to determine that whether its resources are behaving in a desirable manner or not will eventually lead to the strategic advantage or disadvantage of a firm. Now, these are the aspects of an internal environment of any organization. So, with that, we come to the end of this module 3 of the OER on strategy formulation, and we talked about the external as well as internal factors that affect any organizational strategic perspectives.